Hello, good morning. We are
Good
live here.
morning.
We are live here at Pasay City, and it's day 4 of the filing of the certificates of candidacy for the 2022 elections. And maraming naging kaganapan over the past 3 days, but it's still sort of a week-long event dahil hanggang Friday pa tayo dito. And we are your Rappler reporters. I'm Dwight De Leon. Hi, Jairo.
Hi everyone. Hi Dwight. I'm Jairo Boliedo and we're reporting I'm reporting outside of Sofitel area upang tingnan yung mga kaganapan on ground while Dwight is checking on the updates and mga kaganapan doon sa loob ng COMELEC 10 kung saan nagpa-file mismo ang ating mga kandidato. Very, very gloomy morning at rainy morning
Yes, ang lamig.
sa ating lahat. Oo, ang lamig no? So para po sa ating mga kababayan na nagwo-wonder bakit umuulan ngayon, ay wala akong ibig sabihin ito, wala po connection ito doon sa COC filing. Nakakaranas po tayo ng pag-ulan dahil po doon sa ulan na dala ni Typhoon Depression Lani po. So I think
Tropical
Dwight
depression,
has,
Lani.
Tropical Depression Lani. I think Dwight has something to say and has something to share about mga kaganapan and what to expect ngayong araw na ito ng COC filing dyan sa loob ng Sofitel. Dwight?
Yes, definitely. Una, I'm thinking magiging factor kaya ang pag-ulan ngayong araw para sa mga nakaschedule ng mag-file ng certificates of candidacy. Of course, that's one of the many things that we're going to anticipate today. Kasi kahapon, I think, alam mo, malakas din yung ulan eh. And maybe some
Yeah.
candidates were discouraged because of the rain or maybe yung mga plano nila na push back yung schedule nila.
Mm-mm.
So, let's first give a recap of what happened yesterday. It's not really, alam mo yun, parang medyo matumal yung benta kahapon dito sa Sofitel tent dito sa Pasay nga. At iilan-ilan lang yung nag-file, wala masyadong high-profile personalities. But let's talk about a few of them. Kasi alam ko, yung ilang mga nagpunta din dyan sa labas, Gyro, para siguro
Oo.
magpag-grant
Magpa-ambush.
nagpa-ambush interview. So first, let's talk about Manibela Party List Group. They filed their certificates of candidacy here sa Sofitel, and they want to be the genuine representatives of the transport sector in the House of Representatives. So Jairo, alam ko maraming nasabi dyan ang grupong Manibela
Mm-mm.
patungkol sa kanilang pagkilates sa mga nagawa ng Duterte administration over the past 6 years, specifically nga doon sa transport sector. What can you tell us?
Oh, exactly, Dwight, no? Nakausap natin si Marvel Buena, yung first nominee nitong Manibela Party List. And for those viewers na hindi familiar doon sa Manibela, ito po ay isang transport group na tumutulong doon sa mga jeepney operators, mga riders, at mga pamilya ng drivers. So this is the first time that they're gonna be filing or that they filed a certificate of nomination for and they will seek a seat in Congress. Isa sa mga interesting na nangyari dito is that medyo tahimik yung morning kahapon at talagang nag-aabang ng lahat sa mga ganap kasi medyo maulan na rin kahapon. And then
And it's a Sunday.
nagulat kaming and plus it's a Sunday. Maraming rest day ng Sunday, di ba?
Yes.
So parang may nakita lang kami dito na medyo nagkakagulo yung ilang riders, nauna yung ilang mga motor, and then afterwards meron siguro mga around 20 to 30 na mga vehicles na nagparade at nagconvoy dito sa area sa labas ng PACC papasok ng Sofitel area. So para medyo na ano kami, para ay ano kaya to? And nakita namin yung flag nila, Manibela Party List, and then after they filed, before they filed rather, parang medyo nagkaroon actually ng problema dito sa labas kasi parang hinarang daw sila, hinarang daw yung mga vehicles nila kasi alam naman natin medyo very very strict ang ating security protocols dito sa CCP area, sa CCP complex at hinarang daw sila. Ayon sa kanila, nasa 1,000 daw yung mga sasakyan pero sa tingin ko sa tansya namin, wala namang 100 yung dumating. No? So hindi natin alam kung saan galing yung ibang 900 plus na sasakyan. But what we saw here is around 100 at madami naman sila in fact. So, yun yung isa sa mga drama na nag-unfold dito. Nagkaroon sila ng konting gilian lamang with the security authorities. Yes,
Diyan
Dwight,
ka
I think you have something to say.
Bago ako mag-continue, tanong ko lang kasi syempre 'di ba yung COMELEC, kaya nga nila dito ginawa sa Sofitel yung filing is to
Mm-mm.
discourage din yung mga supporters of flocking to the venue, to the premises, para nga syempre ma-practice yung health protocols. My question is, syempre
Mm-mm.
kahapon pansin nga natin may mga dumating syempre mga supporters ganyan, not only the authorized representative of the party list group. So, na-practice ba yung physical distancing outside among supporters?
Alam mo, that's the problem here kasi kapag nagbuno-buno na yung mga supporters, medyo nahihirapan na silang i-disperse ng mga police. Kasi yung mga
Mm.
police, usually, naka-fall in line lang sila horizontally dito sa papasok sa Sofitel area. So basically, ang gusto lang naman talaga nilang i-achieve ng mga ating kapulisan ay harangan. Pero minsan, kapag ganun na yung case, katulad kahapon, may social distancing naman, pero on other occasions, such as the last day, yung kay Sara Duterte supporters, doon medyo nagka-problema sa physical distancing. Pero kahapon medyo okay naman doon sa Malibela Party List. And after that, nakapasok na sila sa COC filing, itong si Marvel Buena, yung first nominee. And I think may mga interesting points siyang binanggit sa loob ng Comelec tent, Dwight.
Yes, I think, well, we asked him kung ano ba ang gradong ibibigay niya sa Duterte administration over the transport sector. Kasi I remember watching the recording, yung interview ninyo outside, and sabi niya, he's giving the transport department, specifically Tugade, a failing mark for
Yes.
how he handled the transport problems in the country, or how he prioritized or misprioritized or did not prioritize the PUV drivers, ganyan. So I said, well, of course, after ma-post yun, I saw some photos online and resurfaced photos of the nominee support for uh,
Bongo. Senator Bongo.
President Duterte, Senator Bongo, just recently. So of course, it's a question that had to be asked. And so
Yeah.
first, we asked him na parang, did something change? Kasi it's just
Mm-mm.
recently, parang, what triggered that, alam mo, parang change of
That
stance.
anger, oo.
Pero they clarified first na their failing mark is given to Transport Secretary Arthur Tugade, and not necessarily Duterte, dahil daw nakipag-usap sila directly kay, or ang may hawak naman daw ng transport sector is ang DOTR secretary. But then we also ask, but di ba parang it's President Duterte who still has command authority in all these things? And sabi niya,
Yeah.
well, pag kay Duterte, it's pasang-awa.
Mhm.
So because hindi rin naman daw nila, I mean, it's 6 years, and I don't think na, alam mo yon, ang mga mamasada sa kalsada ay hindi nila ramdam kung ano yung tunay na kalagayan, sapagkat syempre sila sa pinaka nahirapan talaga during the pandemic. So we also asked him if, if we talk about Duterte, we also talk about Bongo, like, alam mo, they're partners. So are you going to support Bongo? And he said na, well, it's they're still discussing kung ano ang magiging
Mm.
moves nila in the future, but he said na kaya sila lumapit kay Bongo is because they are of course asking for help, and in a way
Mhm.
you cannot blame certain sector, especially those vulnerable ones, if they are asking for help. But at the same time,
Yeah.
these are questions that need to be asked, because
Yes.
these people, once elected, are going to decide on very crucial matters. They're not just going
Yes.
to be, alam mo yun, representative of the transport sector. They're going to have a vote in Congress, in the legislature.
Yes.
And hindi lang transport sector ang pinag-uusapan natin dito. Maraming batas, maraming
Mhm.
panukalang batas ang dumadaan sa House of Representatives. At kapag hindi magagaling ang ating mga opisyal doon, we might have a law that's not beneficial for the public.
Oo. Isa pang factor 'no, kailangan tandaan ng ating mga viewers, yung mga party list po ay binuo yan sa Republic Act na number something something 'no. Yung Party List Act na lang para hindi na tayo mahirapan.
Oo.
Under the Party List Act, binuo po yung mga party list groups para magkaroon ng representation yung mga sector na hindi nare-represent ng maayos, because ang system natin sa House of Representatives nire-represent ng ating mga congressmen at congresswomen yung mga district sa ating mga lugar. Whereas nung pinasa yung batas, naniniwala sila na may mga underrepresented sectors such as the farmers, the drivers, transport groups. So mahalaga po na we ask them the right questions, we clarify things, because at the end of the day, tama po yung sinabi ni Dwight, sila kasi yung magde-decide ng ating future. Uupo po sila for 3 years, uupo po sila for 3 terms. So might as well, as early as now, we should know and we should discern about what their stance and ano yung mga paniniwala nila sa buhay and kung ano yung mga gusto nilang gawin, 'di ba? So,
Speak
interesting din. Yes, Dwight, sorry.
Speaking of whether these party list groups are really representing the marginalized, let's now go to Ilocano defenders, who also filed their certificate of candidacy yesterday. And it's
Mhm.
interesting kasi it's not, alam mo yun, it's not an ordinary name, Ilocano defenders. And when we talk
Yeah,
about party list groups, it's about, alam mo yun, representing marginalized sectors. So of
marginalized
course,
sector.
So of course, when pumating sila dito and they filed their CONA, their certificates of nomination and acceptance,
Mhm.
of course we had to ask them what exactly are you representing, or what your platforms are. And well, they gave vague answers, something to the effect of helping people, mga taga-probinsyanong nasa Manila,
Mhm.
cope or something. So it's quite interesting, and it's
And vague.
it's quite interesting and vague. And at the same time, I ask why is it Ilocano defenders? I don't think I remember the answer. And
Yeah.
I
And
checked the I just one more thing, I checked the Facebook page of Ilocano defenders, and I was referred to a movie poster with the same
poster.
name. So
Yeah.
so it's I don't know,
Pretty
it's
interesting.
but the thing, Gyro, is even in the past, Comelec has allowed party list groups representing their provinces. So it's, alam mo yun,
Yeah.
it's there's a
It's really
mm,
it's really not new because we've
there's a
seen a lot of party list groups like this.
so there's a precedent about this. Parang we have one Anwara, we have Ako Bicol. So
Yeah.
in a way, it's just this may be the same thing, just, alam mo yun, a more awkward name. But anyway, let's move on. We have two senatorial, more
Yes.
high profile senatorial candidates today,
Yes.
because
And
yesterday, and it was a
oo.
very not so busy day. So first, let's talk
Yeah.
about Jinggoy Estrada. I think Jinggoy went there for to grant an average
Yes.
interview. What did
Oo.
he say?
Actually, interesting fact kasi etong area na 'to pakita lang natin. Ayan po. Yang area po na yan, sarado yan supposedly. Ang nakakapasok lang diyan ay media dahil dito kami
Mm-mm.
nagpa-park. But interesting fact, habang naghihintay kami kay Samira Gutoc, around 2 p.m., around 2:30, between 2 to 2:30 p.m., merong dumaang sasakyan dito. I think it's a medyo magandang sasakyan na nagulat kami bakit sila dito dadaan, and with the convoy ha. So tinatanggal nila yung traffic cones and then nagta-try silang pumasok dito sa supposedly no entry area. So kami
Mm-mm.
parang na-curious kami, may lumabas na parang staff and then I asked the staff parang, Sir, sino yung dumating? Alam mo yun, nature ng
Mm-mm.
journalist na maging curious about his or her surroundings. So I asked his staff. And then, di siya sumagot. Tapos nung paglagpas, nakita ng mga fellow reporters ko dito sa field namin na naka-orange. And it was Jinggoy Estrada. So it was former Senator Jinggoy Estrada. And then kumaway lang siya. And then he said na something like, babalik na lang siya dito. And then he did. After niya mag-file dyan sa tent, bumalik siya dito to grant us a very, very quick interview. And I've asked 3 questions. Number one, ano yung say niya sa sibling rivalry na naman? Is this
Mm-mm.
round two of the good one versus the plunderer?
And what did he say?
And medyo nagbago yung mood sa mukha niya. I thought he's gonna be mad at me, but I'm just asking questions because these are the questions that people want to ask and us journalists want to know because because sila din naman nagpasimula ng ganitong klase ng narrative. So we want to ask it right now because they're gonna run again. So sabi niya, yung problema daw nilang magkakapatid ay hindi daw problema ng ating bansa. Finally, they acknowledge that fact and that reality. So let's move on from that. And then he said, I asked him about his pandemic response. And to be honest, I can't remember his answer because I think it's generic that he said that he
Motherhood
wanted to
statement,
focus.
maybe.
Yes, motherhood, exactly. motherhood statement, and he just mentioned about job, providing jobs during the pandemic, which I think relevant, but it's not really a pandemic response. It's not. I think we should talk about mass vaccination, mass testing, mass contact tracing, and so on and so forth. And the most interesting part, I think, is when we asked him about their bid to retrieve their bailiwick in San Juan.
Reclaim San
So
Juan. Yes.
reclaim San Juan ang kanilang narrative. So for the 2022 elections, very interesting that we journalists are looking for, even the viewers, is that lalaban ba ulit yung mga Estrada sa
Because
San Juan?
they suffered a devastating defeat in
Yes,
2019. Parang lahat ng estradang
lahat.
tumakbo natalo. And even San Juan, na considered na, alam mo yun,
Yes,
parang they had a
na
strong grip.
bailiwick
Ay,
nila.
sorry.
Yes.
They had a strong grip in that city.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes.
For the longest time, yun yung bailiwick nila, as well as Manila. So in 2019 elections, we saw the loss of former President and former Manila Mayor Joseph Estrada. Natalo si JV sa senatorial elections, pang 13 siya, pang 15 si Jinggoy. And then si Janela Estrada natalo over Francis Zamora, Mayor Francis Zamora. And this time, sabi ng mga Estrada, babawiin daw nila. And then former Senator JV, Jinggoy, said na hindi nila kino-confirm nor dinedeny, but we'll see either an Ejercito or an Estrada will file certificate of candidacy for mayor. And then ito yung interesting na sinabi niya, medyo parang may paano medyo showbiz talaga si former
Well,
senator. Sabi niya,
he came from a showbiz family.
well,
so,
yeah, and it's his background. He's a former,
yes.
actor. So
If you actually watch his Facebook, if you see his Facebook page, he actually has parang a daily game show. So, a daily online game show na namimigay siya ng pera. So,
wow. So, talagang ginagawa na, talagang
he's used to the spotlight.
Yes. So, interesting na sinabi niya is that, abangan na lang daw. And in fact, my daughter is here. So, I don't know kung sino yung daughter yung sinasabi niya. But basically, maybe nag-hint siya na possibly, probably, and na yung isa sa mga anak niya, or possibly that daughter, yung magpa-file ng candidacy for the San Juan elections. And I think it's gonna be an interesting local elections considering na maganda yung naging track record, I think, for the meantime. Maganda yung track record kahit pa paano ni Mayor Francis Zamora doon sa San Juan City.
Well, James Jimenez, I think, Comelec spokesman James Jimenez is going to arrive shortly and make his speech on stage. But let's just discuss the one last thing from yesterday. It's Samira Gutoc. She supposedly arrived at Sofitel premises at 3 p.m. by 3 p.m. to file her COC, but she was a buzzer beater. She arrived past 5 p.m., which was the deadline imposed by Comelec to file the COC, but the Comelec accommodated her out of courtesy. Ano ba yung sinabi dyan sa labas? Ano ba yung official reason?
Yung explanation niya. So very very interesting kasi dumating siya dito around 2 to 2:30, between 2 to 2:30. And then, nalapitan kami nung EA niya, and then she promised na dadaan dito si Samira to grant us an interview. And then, 3 hours kami halos nakatayo dito sa labas to check kung darating na ba siya o hindi. And then, unang reason kung bakit daw na late is nag-freshen up daw. So, nag-retouch daw, ganyan, nagme-makeup, inaayos yung hijab. So, very, very acceptable reason, I think. And then after an hour, tinanong natin
it's no longer acceptable.
It's no longer freshening up. I think something is wrong. So nagkaroon ng speculations all around na hindi kaya siya nag-positive sa antigen. So tinanong natin yung kanyang staff, and then the staff, pinasinungalingan naman niya yung speculation. It was purely speculation. And then she explained na hindi kasi nagpa-test si Samira Gutoc before. So this is a very, very interesting, and I think very shady or somewhat questionable response, because sabi niya gusto daw kasi ni Samira na makita mismo ng Comelec yung result. What she meant was gusto niya na doon na magpa-test para malinaw daw na hindi nandaya. But I think kahit naman kasi sa labas ka nagpa-test, you can bring it in the Comelec kasi hindi naman nire-require na Comelec na doon ka mag-file sa labas. And other thing, I think last on my
Wait,
part.
just wait lang.
Mm-mm.
If you're going to move to another topic, I just want to make a quick parang more context on the
Mm-mm.
matter. Kasi the
Yes.
COMELEC allows political aspirants to take their antigen test outside.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And dapat lang taken within 24 hours before you
Oo.
enter the premises, and you enter the premises and you make sure it's the negative result. But then, ang sabi
Mm-mm.
naman niya dito, it's not an issue of antigen test result. I don't know if, alam mo yun, if
Mm-mm.
there's a miscommunication or from their end, among their personnel, their staff.
I think,
Um,
oo. I
but
think
but the
there are
official
two,
re- but the
I think
official
there are at
reason
least,
they sige,
yeah, go
the
ahead.
official reason they gave is that um it's a COC issue. Like parang nagbaliktad yung first name,
Yeah,
last name, and they had to
oo.
move around. And that's the official reason they gave. And so
Mm-mm.
that we're sticking to that. Although of course medyo may conflicting statements yung ilang
Mm-mm.
mga nakausap natin
Tao.
from their staff, from their handlers, ganyan. But
Mm-mm.
for it's James Jimenez is here, but let's just talk quickly about the Samira Gutoc as a whole, her platforms, ganyan. Did
Mm-mm.
she say anything outside? What's what
Yes,
what's different
very,
from this from
what
her
she said in,
2019 run and
yeah.
this time?
What's interesting is that, hindi daw, as far as I know, as far as what she said, hindi daw siya formally in-invite ng Liberal Party to run under their slate as a guest candidate. While in fact, she said she thought all along that she's gonna be
Mm-mm.
invited once again under the Liberal Party. But then again, she asked Vice President Leni Robredo's permission na lilipat siya doon sa Action Democratico because her colleagues and mga kaibigan niya ay nandoon sa Action Democratico. So, yun kasi yung unang nagbigay sa kanya ng pagkakataon to run under this 2022 election. And I think that's just fair na tinanggap niya yon. And medyo, until now kasi hindi pa rin until now, hindi pa rin kasi malino kung isasama siya pa rin sa guest candidate na list ng Liberal Party. But what's clear is that nag-file na siya under na Action Democratico ni Isko Moreno, and then may basbas naman daw ito ni Vice President Leni Robredo. On her platforms naman, sabi niya, bilang civic leader sa Marawi at bilang tinulungan niya yung mga Marawi survivors, i-adapt niya yung ganyang style niya to help in the COVID-19 response. So she said that if she wins a Senate seat, she would focus on legislations providing mass testing, intensive pandemic response, focusing on contact tracing and testing on COVID-19 patients. So kailangan daw kasi mag-focus dun sa scientific-based approaches para masolusyonan yung pandemic. Na-mention niya din, as on my part, na ina-acknowledge niya yung rights ng LGBT because she believes na regardless of the gender or expression, anong suot, nakahijab o hindi, everyone deserves an equal opportunity. So medyo na-demonize daw siya because of that, because she's a hijabi woman, she's a Muslim woman, and she isn't supposedly doing that, but she did anyway, and she's doing it uh, in 2019 and she's doing it again in 2022. So yun yung naging very clear sa interview natin kay Samira, right?
I think medyo maunti lang yung oras niya dito sa Sofitel, where she also spoke where she also gave a speech, but she said similar things about her as to why she chose to be with Isko. And I think we already knew that before because she was waiting for an invitation
Liberal
from the
Party.
Liberal Party. And, well, Samira Gutoc is Samira Gutoc. She might not be, alam mo yun,
Yes.
she might not have had, alam mo yun, a very successful run in 2019, but she has her own strengths. You just have to point
Mm-mm.
out that in Marawi City, her home base, she was the top choice in the 2019 senatorial election. She was number one
Yeah.
there. And if you look at the results, it seems like the people of Parawi voted only for her because parang she got like most 80% of the votes, and the second placer in that race, Bongo, I think basta Bongo was a very distant second. So at
Yes.
the politics of Samira obviously resonates to the people of Marawi na syempre pareha sila ng danas, pareha sila ng experiences. It was a war-ravaged city, and it's still in the process of recovery. And Samira Gutoc is someone who says na we should elevate the Marawi rehabilitation discourse to the national level. And of
Yes.
course, we won't expect any less from her if ever she gets elected in the 2022 polls. Now, very quickly, this is day 4 of the COC
Yeah.
filing. We are expecting it's
Halfway.
we're halfway, almost halfway, and we are expecting this to be quite a big day because una, maunti nag-file the other days at marami pang hindi nagfa-file. But we are
Yes.
expecting, of course, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno. He's supposed to come in later in the day, maybe around lunchtime. And I think, syempre, dyan siya unang may kita. I'm not sure if he's going to grant an interview after, but this is, of course, a media-savvy Manila Mayor
Yeah.
and is going to take all the airtime he can get.
Possible airtime.
Mm-mm.
Yes.
Mm-mm. And of course, some other things, I think, just to point out, marami pang hindi nagfa-file. I think may ilang mga cabinet secretary ni Pangulong Duterte ang nagbigay ng hint na tatakbo sila pero hindi pa natin sila nakikita today or I mean in the past few days. Makabayan block, we have at least 6, 5 to 6 party list groups and they have yet to file their CONAs here in COMELEC office. So many things are still bound to happen in the next few days. And our Facebook viewers and all Rappler social media platforms should stay tuned and follow us on Twitter and everywhere so that you could be updated with the latest information on the COC filing week. And later, wag niyo pong kalimutan sa ating gabi, mamayang gabi, in the running, that's Rappler's online show, giving us a recap of what happened during the COC filing for today. So thank you, Jairo, for joining me today to give us a quick discussion on what happened yesterday and what we should expect later today. So that's all for
Thank
today,
you.
and thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone. Keep safe.